Hello, just bring you back. Sorry about the bad lighting. Coils and caps, new leads, everything is all here. So I shall endeavour to put them on a bike. Some assembly required with the new stuff. I'll show you. Right, new coils. You have to install the leads yourself into these pockets. Actually, I thought these were moulded in on the originals. They're not, they're the same. So you have to wind these on to the little stubs. There's a sheath on there. New plug caps, so I've done the same on them. This boot and das boot are all part of the original setup, so you need to, these two you need to put on the lead before you wind the end on, and then this one goes over the end. Anyway, so that's all done. I've tested these all individually before assembling, and every component of this is giving a consistent reading with all the other components. I've made a cheat sheet for my bike so I know which order everything goes in. I've taken photos on the phone. So anyway, I'm going to test these once again now they're complete, test the circuits, just to make sure that that set and that set are equal, to make sure I've got the leads properly installed onto the little self-tapping screw type things. Right, I've tested them. The primary, I think that's the primary. Well, that circuit, I've got 2.2 ohms on both of these, and on these I've got 3.5 ohms. Don't know what that means. And on the secondary, or the primary, whichever one it is, lead to lead, I've got 35 at 200k. So is that 200,000? Anyway, whatever it is, 0.35. The same, consistent both sides. So I've connected them okay. Now I'm going to put them on the bike. Yeah, and I did check all the parts individually, like I said, and these plug caps were averaging about 10. Can't remember if it was ohms or kilo ohms. These are all about 10. These ones have got 13, 13, 13 and 18. I think it was on the 200k, whichever one. Anyway, this all seems consistent, and bear in mind, even though this is pretty consistent, I'm guessing it's breaking down when it gets hot. And that's fingers crossed what I'm hoping is the problem. Right, coils, leads, caps, all in. I've kept the full length of all the leads just because why not? It's not going to hurt. At least they'll all be consistently resistant, and I've just fed them in. So now I need to set up my fuel supply. I'm not going to put the tank back on, obviously, because if this doesn't work I'm going to be having the carbs out again, and if it does work I'm probably going to balance the carbs again anyway, just to make sure. So I'm going to set up the spare fuel tank. Righty, I've set up the temporary fuel supply. I'm on the prime setting, and the vacuum hose for the fuel tap I've got clamped off because we're not using that. Now that's stuck in there nicely. Right, so I'm going to set the camera up and see if we can start it even. Carbs have been empty, and obviously it's stone cold. So let's see. Choke full on. grab a cuppa and I'll come back. Right, bit more investigation. I'm going to get the carb balancer out again. Sorry, bloody light. So we'll get it sometime. Right, it ran smooth on all four. No popping, no misfiring. I checked the temperature on the exhausts. I know it's a bit vague and all that, but every single time when I check the exhaust, one of them is down. Whatever angle I do it at. So anyway, when it got warm, I started to get a pop again, a misfire. It's hard to explain. It's a pop in the exhaust, like a misfire. And then by which time when it was warm, cylinders 1, 3 and 4 were at whatever, 130 degrees, and cylinder number 2 was at 110, so it was 20 degrees below. It's firing, at least. It wasn't firing at all before. So I'm going to do carb balance again, check that. I still think there's something going on. I may well have to take the carbs out again and check to see if something's not quite right in number 2. I probably would just undo number 2 and take the jets out, blow them out, set the needle and seat height and everything again. Just do it on that single one, see if it can do. I can't quite reach it while it's in the bike. Shame it's not. If it was number 1, I could have done it on the bike. So anyway, I'll have a cuppa, get the carb balancer kit set up, see what difference that makes, if any. I'm thinking, well, I've changed the coils, so it may be sparking differently. I may need to retune the carbs anyway. It's going to take me minutes to set it up, so why not? Catch you in a bit. Right, I've even done this at 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 and 5,000 revs, and at all of those rev intervals, they're all spot on. There's nothing between them. So let me gather my thoughts. Okay, I think we're all right. After doing checking the carb balance, I didn't have to touch anything. Got it ticking over about 1200 revs. Checked it again with the temperature thing, thermometer, and number 2 cylinder was still 20 degrees cooler than the other 3. Which is strange because number 3 was doing that first and now it's gone to number 2. Anyway, but it seemed to be ticking over fine. It sounded okay, so I thought the only real thing to do here is actually take it out for a ride. Now, I can't ride far because my balance is all whiffy, but just up the road, probably less than a mile away, there's a bunch of industrial estates, sort of out in the countryside, but industrial estates, if you know what I mean. And they've got 30, 40 and 50 roads up there. Oh, and a couple of 60 bits as well. So I took it out. I did 7 miles, 7 or 8 miles. That's all I didn't want to risk it because it's only about a mile away. If I started to get a bit wobbly, it's only seconds to come home. So anyway, I did about 5 miles, running beautifully, absolutely fine, apart from a very, very minor stumble pulling away. Hardly noticeable, but just a little tiny bit bumpy, just pulling away from stops. But all the other parts of the rev range running fantastic, absolutely beautifully, and it wasn't popping and misfiring. So I did 5 miles like that, all high speed, low speed, stop, start, proper in town situation. After 5 miles, I decided to come back, and I hit a big pile of lunchtime traffic, I guess it is. So I was starting to weave through that, and then the revs, the idle speed started to creep up to almost 2,000 revs. So I was working it with the clutch and the brake to keep the idle speed down, because I'm sat in traffic now, and I was filtering a bit, but there was, I was like half a mile from the house. So I managed to get through that using the clutch and the engine to keep the idle speed down. Come back home, parked it, left the engine running, and the idle speed was probably 1900 revs. So I knocked that down on the idle speed knurled thing. So I knocked it back down to about 1100 revs, where it would be, and it sat there calmly. So I got back on it, and I went and did another 3 miles. The stumble pulling away, completely gone. It's running cleanly, no misfiring. It's running perfectly at all speeds, and for the 3 miles I actually carried on testing it. Every time I stopped, the revs came back down to 1100 and stayed there. And it seems to be running absolutely perfect. I brought it back home. You saw me pulling the garden. Sorry for the big gap in the video, but I no doubt won't edit that bit out because I don't know how to. And then when I came in and got off the bike just now, I left it idling at 1100 revs, got my thermometer out, and all 4 cylinders are now exactly the same temperature. Now, I know a lot of people have said ignore the temperature on the cylinders, it doesn't make, these thermometers aren't, but I've consistently had a low temperature cylinder since I first started looking at it, and a bit of a misfire and a bit of stumbling. So me, I need perfection, and I wanted all 4 cylinders to be running at the same temperature, within reason, and now they are. So I'm thinking whether the coils have helped or not, I don't care, because now it's got new coils, leads, caps, everything is perfectly in the range of ohms it should be, whereas the old kit was a little bit up and down, some fluctuations and some variations, and the leads were getting really short. So coils, I'm happy that I've replaced all of them, because they're 22 years old, the coils. Excuse me. What I'm thinking is, when I strip the carbs, I obviously fixed number 3, whatever was going on with number 3 cylinder, I fixed it by cleaning it out and changing the needles on seats. But I wonder if I either dislodged or introduced a tiny bit of dirt into number 2 idle jet, and it was that, because I was getting a spark on. I thought the coil had completely crapped out on number 2, but I was still getting a spark, consistent spark, but I didn't trust the coils. So I wonder if I've got it all set up and there was a little bit of a blockage in number 2 idle jet, and I've set it all up and got it running at 1250 revs, and then as I've been riding, after 5 miles, it's cleared that tiny semi blockage. Then my revs, my idle speed has come up because it's allowing more fuel to pass on number 2, and once I've knocked the idle speed down back to where it is, now everything's running on an even plane. Now, does that mean I need to balance the carbs again? Because at idle, number 2 would have been seeing less fuel than the other 3 cylinders, and I've balanced them now to a point where it's slightly off on number 2. I don't think so, because I also balance them at 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 and 5,000 revs, and it was fine. And you're off of the, I'm not sure when the idle jet stops being the idle jet before the main jet cuts in. I could look it up in the manual, it'll tell me. I used to know, I can't remember. Sorry, I used to know on the Triumph Daytona 1200. But anyway, at this point in time, it's now running, it's idling, it's accelerating and doing everything perfectly and smoothly, and all the cylinders are the same temperature on the thermometer, even though half of you keep telling me don't worry about that. I know it's a Bandit, they normally don't even idle properly, but I've had a number of Bandits now, and and this one, before it started playing up, used to run absolutely sewing machine sweet. It's only got 19,000 miles on it. It's 22 years old, so age deteriorates a bike as well as mileage. So there we go. So at this point I'm happy. What I need to do is to get lots more miles on it, which is obviously not going to happen because of my medical balance issues. But if I can even just get 5 or 10 miles a day on it, just around the local circuit, I'm gonna be able to see if there's any more issues coming up. So I'll let you know what happens. Peace and love. Thanks for all your suggestions. This might be fixed. I might be having the carbs out again, who knows, but I'm thinking my theory with a bit of debris in number 2 idle jet, perhaps. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me. Peace and love. I've been Springy. See you soon. Cheers.